Good morning, and thanks for joining us for another edition of the Elville webinar series. Today is Thursday, June 26th. Our topic today is an overview of special needs trust and ABLE accounts, planning for unique circumstances. And we have not two, but three outstanding presenters today to share information and education with you. Lilly Hummel, who is a principal attorney and leader of the Rockville office of Elville & Associates. Cortney Heykoop, a chartered special needs financial consultant with Clover Wealth Strategies, and Kelly Nelson, Outreach and Communications Manager with Maryland ABLE. And I'm Jeff Stauffer. I'll be your moderator today. A few housekeeping items as we get started. We always encourage your general questions, and we'll take most of them at the end. So please note them in the questions panel on your screen at any time. And more specific questions that you may have about your unique situation are probably best answered in the consultation with Lilly, Cortney, or Kelly. And you also received the presentation slides that they'll be referencing yesterday by email. If you didn't get that for some reason, they're available in the section marked handouts to download on your screen. And everyone will also receive a post-webinar feedback email right after the presentation. Please take just a couple minutes to fill out this brief yet important feedback to share with us how we did today. And a question for you: have you reached your planning goals, or have those goals shifted since you last looked at your planning, be it 2 years or maybe 20 years ago? And here at Elville & Associates, we're always a resource for your family's planning needs, whatever it may be. If you're starting from scratch from the beginning, or have older documents that need to be reviewed, an administration matter or another matter, Lilly, Cortney, and Kelly can meet with you to answer your individual questions, understand your situation, and work to create a path forward for you. So Lilly, Cortney, and Kelly, welcome, and I will let you all take it from here.
Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. As Jeff said, I'm Lilly Hummel. I'm a principal attorney here at Elville & Associates. I'm based in Rockville, and I lead both our Rockville office as well as our special needs work. A brief disclaimer, of course, this is just meant to be education. This is not intended to be legal advice specific to your situation. And in addition, I just want to say Cortney and I have done 2 prior presentations. I know Kelly has done a number of presentations, both for Elville & Associates and in other forums. So this presentation, at least on the special needs trust side, which is what I'll be presenting on, does assume some basic familiarity with estate planning foundations. We have a webinar recorded and available on our website from April 25th, as well as many other webinars that can help if someone has baseline questions about estate planning. So for my presentation, as an introduction, a brief overview of what does special needs planning mean, and then I'll be covering special needs trusts. Kelly will be talking about ABLE accounts, and then Cortney is going to tie it all together. So when we say special needs planning as a starting point, we have to get on the same page about what does this mean. This is generally comes into play when a beneficiary, so either you yourself or someone in your family or someone you want to leave assets to, has a disability and most likely qualifies for some type of public benefit program. In order to qualify for most public benefit programs, there are asset restrictions. So while we would like to make them gifts or leave them inheritance, we can't leave it directly to them and have them still qualify for these benefits that they need. So one aspect of special needs planning has to do with how do we achieve your wishes regarding gifting and inheritance strategies, while at the same time preserving a loved one's access to the public benefits they need. It can also be for the individual themselves who has the disability. How do we arrange their own estate planning? In order to fully understand what Kelly and I are going to review regarding special needs trust and ABLE accounts, I think it is helpful to have a basic understanding of some of the public benefits that are most common for people with disabilities. So this is just a very high-level overview. The numbers on here reflect 2025 limits, and they do change. Generally, they do change year to year. First, we have supplemental security income, which is a monthly income benefit to those who are relatively low income and low asset and have a disability determination from the Social Security Administration. This is one of the more restrictive programs in terms of maintaining eligibility, how assets and income are counted. Another program that some people will qualify for on the basis of a disability, if they are unable to work beyond earning above a certain threshold and they have a disability determination, then when their first parent either retires, or it's not really about retirement, but elects their own Social Security retirement or passes away, then that disabled adult child is entitled to a different benefit that can be in addition to or in replacing SSI, which goes by the name Disabled Adult Child Benefit or sometimes the Childhood Disability Benefit. The amount of that specific monthly payment is based on the parent's work record. So for parents that are managing affairs for adult children with disabilities, a very important piece of their own estate planning is understanding that the amount of monthly benefit their child is entitled to is going to change when the first parent elects their own retirement from Social Security or passes away. On the health insurance side, the two major public benefit programs are Medicaid and Medicare. And while they sound similar in name, they operate very, very differently. Medicaid is an umbrella term that incorporates a lot of different health insurance programs. Each of these programs have different target beneficiaries who can enroll. They provide different sets of benefit packages, and they have different eligibility criteria. So it can be very confusing if you just use the term Medicaid. That means different things in different contexts, and different states have different rules. But the most relevant that comes up for people who have disabilities is the waiver program. The waiver program through Medicaid is the avenue through which people can get supports and services, residential services. The last program I'm going to touch on briefly is Medicare. Medicare is available for people who have worked a certain amount paying into the system. It's 40 quarters of coverage, which generally ends up meaning 10 years of work where you're paying in taxes and FICA. And then it's also available to people who have a disability determination from Social Security after they've waited a 25-month waiting period. So if your child qualifies for SSI and then over time the parent retires and they transition, the child is now receiving the Disabled Adult Child Benefit, then they will also start to receive the Medicare benefit. As I go through the special needs planning, I want to just give you a preview of how I'm going to talk about special needs trusts. It's really a foundational set of building blocks that are important. So first I'm going to go through what is a trust foundationally. Of many different types of trusts, we're focusing today on special needs trusts. So what is a special needs trust specifically? When you get into the special needs trusts world, we're talking about first-party special needs trusts and third-party. And then they can be structured in two different ways. They can be directed and pooled. And I'm going to do a brief overview of what this all means. And then separate from trusts is this other concept of an ABLE account, which is what Kelly's going to be covering today. So I think it's very important that we start off just from that foundational knowledge. What is a trust? If you haven't dealt with a trust before, a trust is a contract. It's an agreement. And there are three different types of parties that are generally involved with every type of trust. There can be more depending on how you structure your trust. But I think to get your head around what is a trust, we need to understand three different types of actors with a trust. First is the grantor. In some states, they call this person the settlor. Here in Maryland, we call them the grantor. That's the person establishing the trust, meaning it's the person directing what are going to be the terms and the conditions of the trust. And so they're the ones who lay out how the trust is going to operate. They're going to define the circumstances of distribution. That's the grantor. The second class of people, of entities that are operating within trust is the trustee. So the trustee is who is the decision maker and the responsible person for managing the trust. So they're the ones that are making the distributions, overseeing the investments, and making sure the terms of the trust are met. The trustee can be the same person as the grantor, but it may not be, and it could be that there's a plan for successor trustees over time. And finally, the third class of people that it's important to understand for a trust are the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the person or people who can benefit from the trust. So they're the ones who are entitled to some kind of benefit from the trust assets. When I say trust assets or assets titled to a trust, what I mean is rather than assets that are in Jim Smith's individual name, it's titled to the Jim Smith Trust for Jim's benefit. So it can be as simple as a checking account, it can be real estate, it can be a brokerage investment account. Lots of different types of assets can be a part of the trust. So if you think of the trust as an umbrella entity, and then it may have lots of different types of accounts or assets that are part of it, or it may be as simple as a checking account, all of which is governed by the terms of the trust. So then if we get more specific for special needs trusts, because we have lots of different types of trusts, a special needs trust is federally and state regulated, where our policymakers have agreed and stated very plainly that if you create a proper special needs trust, assets titled to that trust can be used for the benefit of a person with a disability, but not counted for the purpose of their benefits eligibility. So what that means in real terms is that mom or dad can leave a $200,000 investment brokerage account directly to a special needs trust for the benefit of daughter with a disability. Meanwhile, daughter with a disability can continue to receive Medicaid waiver services, housing supports, Medicaid health insurance, SSI. It is not, even though the terms of the trust lay out that the funds in that special needs trust should be used for daughter's benefit, she never directly owned it, and therefore, or even if she did at one point directly own it, she doesn't directly own it and cannot control it or direct what happens to it now. So therefore, she can qualify for these means tested programs. For this to qualify as a special needs trust, one of the most important attributes of the trust is that it must be a purely discretionary trust, which means we cannot require the trustee to make distributions under any circumstances. We cannot require monthly income be paid out. We cannot require that they cover certain kinds of programs or benefits. All we can do is put in the trust our intent and instructions to the trustee, but it all has to be non-binding. The reason that this is set up this way is because the government has agreed these funds can be held for this person, but under no circumstance can that person direct the funds. And so in order for this to work the way that it's intended, the special needs trust has to be a purely discretionary trust, giving trustee sole authority over all distributions. One piece that I really want to cover, it's a very important aspect of a special needs trust, is that the source of the funds will direct whether this is a first-party special needs trust or a third-party special needs trust. First party means that at some point, the beneficiary, the person with the disability, had control over the funds. Now, maybe in real life, they never actually had any control. It was never actually in an account under their Social Security number. But if in any way they had the legal right to direct where those funds were going, then those funds were considered theirs and can only be directed in the future into a first-party trust. This is commonly used if we need to protect, if they're earning money, if they start receiving public benefits and they're starting to save more than that $2,000 a month asset limit, then one avenue for protecting the funds and maintaining benefit eligibility is a first-party special needs trust. And the final avenue that's most common for where this first party special needs trusts get funded are when someone doesn't do their estate planning and leaves money directly to the person with a disability. If that person's estate planning documents, will, their own revocable trust, or their designated beneficiaries, names the person with a disability, then that person with the disability has control over the money, even if we understand in real life they may not have capacity or they never actually asked for the distribution. Then the money, the goal would be to have those funds directed to a first party trust so that we can protect that person's benefits eligibility. If we do our estate planning properly, then all inheritance for a person with a disability would be directed into a third party trust. This can include gifts while the owner of the funds are alive, inheritance, or life insurance directed to the trust. The last attribute of a special needs trust I want to touch on is whether it is directed or pooled. This is the most in the weeds piece of what I'm going to cover with a special needs trust. Directed means the contract, the special needs trust, is a standalone document. It is its own document with its own title that you or somebody as the grantor signs, and it stands alone. It may not be funded at that time. It may be lying in wait to receive future inheritance, but it is a standalone document. It could be embedded in a will, or it could be embedded in your revocable trust, but it is labeled, you know, the John Doe Supplemental Needs Trust. So it is its own trust with its own parameters. That's directed. So either freestanding, its own document, or embedded within your will or your revocable trust, it has its own terms and its own direction for who will be the trustee and what happens to any funds after the lifetime of the beneficiary. Different from a directed special needs trust is a pooled trust. These are operated by nonprofit trust companies. There's dozens and dozens of them out there. These nonprofit trust companies have what's called a joinder agreement, where you as the grantor, or it could be directly the person with the disability, are signing a series of paperwork to join in with an umbrella trust that nonprofit trust company runs. The funds are still held aside for the beneficiary, but the family is not the trustee, and the pooled trust company is going to be the trustee and responsible for disbursements. This can work really well for individuals where maybe there is no one that is the right choice to serve as trustee. Maybe for any number of reasons, there is not a directed trust, there's not a separate standalone trust established. It may work really well to work with a nonprofit trust company. This slide is really meant to be a resource to you. Everybody attending should have the slides. It does lay out the difference between a first party and a third party. And then for a first party that's run through a pooled nonprofit trust company, there's some additional rules as well. So this is really just meant to serve as a reference guide because there are nuances to how they're established, when money can go in, who can establish the trust. So in short, I recognize we went through a lot fairly quickly. If you're looking for more details, I would refer you back to Cortney and my presentation from April 25th. I provided a little bit more detail about each of these different building blocks of a special needs trust. But with this, I'm now going to turn it over to Kelly to talk about ABLE accounts.
Thank you, Lily. That was a really great explanation of the various types of trusts. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up with another type of way, another tool in your toolkit, if you will, to be able to protect those federal and state means tested benefits. And that would be an ABLE account. So let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screens and hopefully all will go well. All right.
Kelly, go ahead and click from beginning there.
Oh, there we go. All right, there we go. Okay, again, my name is Kelly Nelson, and I am the Outreach and Communications Manager for the Maryland ABLE program. And I appreciate this opportunity to collaborate today with Cortney and Lilly to talk about sort of the big picture process of planning for a family member or a loved one with a disability. In addition to being with the Maryland ABLE program for almost 7 years now, I am also a parent of a 21-year-old young lady who has an ABLE account of her own, and I've had the wonderful opportunity of helping her to open the account and manage the account. So I bring with me a knowledge of the process of managing an ABLE account, being able to see how it has benefited our daughter in helping her to grow in her independence, learn financial literacy skills, but also equally important is giving her father and I a way to plan and prepare for the future. And, you know, having had this process over the years and also having a special needs trust developed for our daughter, it really has highlighted how these two tools can be used in collaboration with one another and be used in different ways. So that I'm going to highlight some things as I go through ABLE information to show how it can work in collaboration with the special needs trust and how it may differ, and also how these differences play out in their benefits. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Just want to start out that ABLE accounts, Maryland ABLE and all ABLE accounts, are a way for a person with a disability and their families to be able to save money without jeopardizing those federal and state means-tested benefits such as SSI, Medicaid, and all those waivers that Lilly did such a good job explaining as in public benefits. This is due to federal legislation that was passed by President Obama in 2014 called the Stephen Agbeck Jr. Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, or as we refer to it as the ABLE Act. And regulations for our ABLE programs and eligibility criteria and all of our regulations are actually housed within the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529A. Some of you may be familiar with 529 because that's our college savings accounts. So we are sort of sisters, if you will, in the Internal Revenue Code, having a lot of similarities as well as a few differences as well. Here in Maryland, Governor Hogan signed our ABLE Act into law in 2016, and we launched our program in 2017, having celebrated our 7th year anniversary back in November. And you know, I like to point out that when ABLE legislation passed, it gave states across the country to open ABLE programs, but it didn't federally mandate to do so, and it didn't provide any funding. So it has taken a number of years to really see ABLE accounts open across the nation. Currently, we have 47 of them nationwide, with Maryland being one of them. And our particular program here in Maryland is operated under the Maryland State Treasurer's Office. So as I move through this information, please know that the eligibility criteria and all the things that I'm going to be discussing as far as regulations are going to apply to ABLE programs nationwide, all right? So if you're attending from another state or you are thinking of moving to another state, this information will apply to those programs as well. The main reasons that people are interested in opening ABLE accounts is the one that I first mentioned, is that ability to increase that savings limit before SSI cash benefits are impacted. And that is one of the things that, you know, as families planning for a loved one, we want to make sure that when we as family members, parents are gone, we have everything in place that they're going to need, that Medicaid, those waivers, and also have a way for us to be able to begin saving and planning for their future. So this is a secondary tool, if you will, to a special needs trust. Prior to ABLE legislation, the only way to be able to leave assets to a family member with a disability receiving public benefits was to have that money put into a special needs trust. So this is a secondary tool to make that happen. The second thing is that in addition to protecting SSI, it's going to protect those other types of means tested benefits, the Medicaid and all those waivers. With a special needs trust, the money that's in the, within an ABLE account, the money within the account will have no federal or state taxes on the earnings, not while the money's in the ABLE account and not while it's taken out or withdrawn, as long as that money is being used for the beneficiary for anything that's going to support them in their health, independence, or quality of life. So tax-free earnings, which is a great thing. And also many states across the nation offer other tax advantages, such as, for example, Maryland has an income subtraction for contributions made to an ABLE account, can be used as an income subtraction up to $2,500 per person per ABLE account. So for a family that has a person with a disability and they're making contributions to their ABLE account, to their child's ABLE account, they can claim up to $5,000 as an income subtraction off of their Maryland state taxes. So it's a great incentive for families to begin planning and preparing for their child's future with an ABLE account, also knowing that the money that's in the ABLE account can be accessed whenever they need it. They don't have to wait until a certain date or time. They can access it whenever that person needs anything that's going to support them in their health and independence and quality of life. One of the other things about an ABLE account is, and this is a major difference from when you're planning a special needs trust, ABLE accounts can be opened online in about 15 to 20 minutes, which is a relief for a lot of families who have spent a lot of time filling out applications to try to qualify for benefits and having to wait a long period of time. You have that low-lying fruit, if you will, as you're beginning your planning process, because you can open these accounts quickly. This is going to be different from when you sit down with an attorney and work together to develop a special needs trust. It is going to be investment of your time as well, because they're going to give you a lot of homework because you're going to be planning this very finely nuanced trust, special needs trust, and you're going to have to make sure that you make time for that. It's very well worth it at the end. Again, I also see a lot of families that eventually wind up with both an ABLE account and a special needs trust, but it is going to take a little bit more time, obviously. The other one is that the other thing would be obviously the ability of who can open, the eligibility of who can open a SNC ABLE account. So currently under our regulations now, if a person had a disability prior to their 26th birthday, they are eligible for an ABLE account if they are either receiving SSI, SSDI, or if they have a qualifying disability that would meet the Social Security definition of a disability. Okay, so sometimes we see families that have young children that currently are not receiving SSI, because if they were to apply for it, likely their family income would be beyond their income threshold that qualifies them for SSI, and they don't receive it. However, the child does have a qualifying disability. So in that case, all that you need to do is provide a disability certification form signed by your physician indicating that your child has a disability and they are eligible for an ABLE account. Please do note that effective January 1 of 2026, the Able Age Adjustment Act is going to raise the age of onset for ABLE account eligibility to anyone with a disability prior to their 46th birthday. Let's take a look at who owns the ABLE account. And this is going to differ a bit from what Lilly was talking about when you talk about the grantor, the person who establishes the account, the trustee, the beneficiary. So with an ABLE account, it is always the person with the disability who is both the owner of the account and the beneficiary. When you have a family member under the age of 18, they're going to have someone help them to establish the account and manage it on their behalf. This person in the ABLE space is called the authorized legal representative, basically the person that's going to open and manage that account. However, no matter the age of that child, it could be an infant that was born with, say Down syndrome, so right away you know that they have an eligible disability that's going to be present with them throughout their lifetime. They could be a week old and you could open an ABLE account for that child, and that child is both the owner and beneficiary. The parent or the grandparent or guardian or another adult is going to be the authorized legal representative. If you have a family member that is over the age of 18 and you're considering opening an ABLE account, they could, if they're able to do so, they can open and manage their own ABLE account. If they are able to open the account, but they still choose to have someone help them and manage the account, they can appoint anyone that they want to serve as that ALR. Okay, so that is one option, but they are certainly able to manage it if they're able to do so. For those of you who may have a family member who's over the age of 18 and they're not able to give consent, they're not able to appoint someone themselves to serve as that ALR, you can still open an ABLE account for a person that's unable to give consent if you meet one of these criteria. You either have a power of attorney over finances, you're serving as a conservator or legal guardianship, if you're a spouse, a parent. This is where we see a lot of parents coming in to open that and establish that account. It could be a sibling or a grandparent or someone serving as representative payee. So that is who can help them to open and manage that account. This is going to be another area where when we talk about contributions, we're going to see things that differ from special needs trusts. And with an ABLE account, you can establish an account for as little as $25 here in Maryland. That's our minimum contribution limit. Each state has a different minimum contribution. But the important thing I want you to remember is with a special needs, with an ABLE account, there is a standard annual contribution limit. Currently, it's $19,000 for this year. This could change again next year. It doesn't always change, but from time to time, this has been increasing. Every time the federal gift tax exclusion rule changes, our standard annual contribution rises with that. So this means that a person can contribute up to $19,000 per calendar year, and no more than that. So right away, you see a big difference between a special needs trust and ABLE in that a special needs trust, you can fund it, establish it with any amount of money. You don't have a limit of how much money you can fund your special needs trust with. However, with an ABLE account, you are limited to $19,000 a year. This is one of the biggest areas where we see a need for multiple planning tools. Definitely an ABLE account is a great way to get started on planning for the future, but if you are looking to be able to use an ABLE account as a way to leave your estate, life insurance policies, money, property, you're not going to be able to do that because chances are your estate is going to exceed $19,000 a year. So definitely a need for multiple planning tools. There is an exception to the rule for those folks who have an ABLE account who are working and are not contributing to a retirement account, or their employer isn't contributing on their behalf. They can contribute an additional up to $15,060. And this again only applies to folks who qualify for able to work contributions. So even so, you can have $19,000 that anyone can contribute to in an ABLE account, and the account owner can contribute additional funds through able to work if they're eligible. Right? But still, it is a limited amount of money that you can put into an ABLE account each year. Another important number that I want you to keep in mind is the $100,000 ABLE account balance. So this is important for a person who's receiving SSI cash benefits. And Lilly explained the difference between SSI and SSDI. SSDI does not have an asset limit. So this is really important for those receiving SSI. If you would continue to fund the ABLE account each year and the balance should reach $100,000, what would happen for those receiving SSI cash benefits would be that the account, their SSI cash benefits would be put into a state of suspension after the account reaches $100,000. However, Medicaid and all waivers that they may be receiving, housing, energy assistance, food assistance, any of the waivers, support waivers, would remain in place. They're still protected. It's also important to know that you're not disenrolled when you exceed the $100,000 balance. You're in a state of suspension. So at any point, the account owner should spend money from that ABLE account and the balance fall below $100,000, Social Security can reactivate those SSI benefits because they were never actually disenrolled. You can also let that ABLE account balance grow up to $500,000, at which point we would no longer be able to accept contributions, because if the interest could continue to grow the earnings, but we couldn't accept contributions after that point. So again, you see that ABLE accounts and special needs trust have a big difference in how much money you can contribute. Okay. All right. And let's go ahead and take a look at who can contribute to an ABLE account. This is a really wonderful thing because family and friends, the account owner with his or her own money can put money into the ABLE account. We see this as a wonderful opportunity for those who have been waiting for SSI benefits to be approved. They get large back payments where sometimes we're seeing $5,000, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 in back payments from Social Security already. You're over that $2,000 limit. So you're given an amount of time to spend it, but if you don't need that money at that time, an ABLE account is a wonderful place to be able to put those large back payments so that you can use it whenever you want. You can fund it with special needs trusts. Lilly talked about the difference between being able to pay for housing out of an ABLE account and not out of a special needs trust. So we see a lot of families who fund their ABLE account each year with an amount of money from the trust to be able to pay for housing. You can also put small inheritances, small settlements, and also rollovers from college savings plans. That's the slide I was on. I'm going to leave it in this slide deck so that way when you have access to it later, you can learn more about that. But anyone that has a college savings plan and they find out later in life that maybe college is not the pathway, they are able to roll money from a 529 college savings plan into the ABLE account, expanding how that money can now be used. When it was in a 529 account, it was really earmarked for education and tuition and room and board and books and things like that. So once you roll it into the ABLE account, you now have access to use it to pay for anything that would benefit the account holder in health, independence, or quality of life. Do keep in mind that this is going to be subject to that $19,000 a year standard annual contribution limit, so you may have to ladle those funds out over a number of years. One of the things that we see with an ABLE account is that you have options, whether you want to save or invest the money in the ABLE account. And I'm not going to get into the weeds on this, just to let you know that you do have options. You could put it into a cash option that's an FDIC insured interest-bearing bank account, currently receiving about 4% interest. This is a popular option for a lot of folks who open and manage their own accounts. They're putting their own income in there, and then they're also using those funds throughout the month to pay for their regular expenses. So they like this cash savings option because they know the money's going to be there when they need to take it out. We also have 4 different investment options, and every state across the nation that has an ABLE program has a different mix of investment options. Here in Maryland, we have 4 different ones, and I'm not going to go into those specifically. I do invite you to read our program disclosure book at the Maryland ABLE website so that you can learn about these 4 different investment options as well. And Cortney's going to talk a lot more about the investments and financial planning piece of that. With an ABLE account, there are fees associated with an account. Here in Maryland, our annual maintenance fee is $35 a year. It is prorated and also assessed quarterly. There is an additional fee for those who are interested in the investment options, as there's a standard asset-based fee associated with that. And again, you want to consult that program disclosure book to learn more about that. Let's talk a little bit about accessing the money in the ABLE account. This is another area that is very different for special needs trust and ABLE, because it provides the person with the disability the ability to have access to their own funds if they're able to manage their account. Okay, special needs trust, we're going to be using the trustee that is going to be financing, making those financial decisions and dispersing money from the account. With an ABLE account, you are going to be able to link an existing bank account with the ABLE account. This could be the person that's serving as ALR. It could also be the account owner beneficiary's account, so that they have the opportunity to be able to put money into the ABLE account and take withdrawals for it to make those purchases. We also offer, for those people who do not have the ability to manage the account online, we do have paper enrollment and the ability to manage things through paper transactions, but they really are intended to be managed online. And again, the account owner can access their funds if they're managing the account, and if they're having someone serve as their authorized legal representative, they still have the ability to access their own ABLE funds through the prepaid card option, which is something that that is a great tool for someone who wants to be able to use their ABLE funds, where the person that's serving as ALR is going to be loading funds onto that prepaid card. They don't have access to all the funds in the ABLE account, but just that specific amount, and then they can access things that they need in the community or online through their prepaid card anywhere that Visa is accepted. So it's an opportunity for them to be able to grow in their financial literacy skills, in their ability to be independent and practice some of those financial skills as well, as opposed to a special needs trust being an area where someone is going to be doing those financial transactions on their behalf. Okay. What you can use the money for in your ABLE account: if you were to look in the Internal Revenue Code, Section 529, they would define a qualified disability expense as anything that's going to support a person in their health, independence, or quality of life. This is a list of categories that they provided. It is not intended to be an all-inclusive list, but rather things just to give you an idea of things that you can use it for. But whoever is managing that account, whether it be the account owner, the person with the disability, or the ALR, before they spend money from that account and take those withdrawals, they just have to ask themselves this question: does this service, does this purchase, does this item support the beneficiary in his health, in her independence, in their quality of life? If the answer to that question is yes, then it's a qualified disability expense. We recommend that best practice is that you support this withdrawals by keeping documentation. This can look different for different people. Some people like to scan receipts and keep everything in a file. Some people like to keep paper copies of our receipts in an envelope. Other people like to use the prepaid card option that tracks all those expenses. We just recommend that you do maintain your documentation. Maryland ABLE is not going to be asking you for this. No ABLE account is going to ask you to produce documentation. But in the event of an audit from the IRS, they're going to want to know two things. Number one, does this person qualify for the ABLE account? And if they're receiving SSI or SSDI, or they have a disability certification form indicating their qualifying disability, the IRS would be good to go with that. The second thing they want to know is, how's the money being used? Is it truly being spent on the beneficiary? And this is the way that you can provide that documentation. Okay. All programs nationwide have different features. Here in Maryland, we have a gifting page, which is a wonderful way that makes it really easy and convenient for family and friends to be able to make contributions to the ABLE account. It goes directly into the account, and it's done through a link that people can send by email, text, or messenger. So it's very, very easy. I know here in Maryland, over the last 7 years, we've had 766 account holders use it, and over the last 7 years have received over $7 million in gifts. And then, of course, those making those contributions can benefit from an income subtraction on their Maryland state taxes. So it's a great win-win. We've talked about the prepaid card is a wonderful way for folks to be able to access money directly. You can set up direct deposit of funds from Social Security into the ABLE account for convenience, and also payroll contributions. And I could go on a lot about the different features we have, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to stop there and leave you with this particular slide summarizing some of the main numbers that we have talked about. Okay. The last thing I just want to say before I turn it over to Cortney is, again, the Special Needs Trust and Able Account are really collaborative tools, okay? They have different purposes and can benefit people in different ways. So thank you so much, Cortney. You're going to wrap it all together for us and talk about the financial piece.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Kelly. That's fantastic. I'm just confirming you all can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. Hello, my name is Cortney Heykoop. I'm going to, like they said, kind of pull all this together and help it make sense of in the overall view of our futures planning and what we need to do for our children. My name is Cortney Heykoop. I'm the owner of Clover Wealth Strategies. We're a firm, clients across the country, but we're located in Virginia. And particularly we serve families like mine. That means families that have a child with special needs. This is a picture of mine the day she got her service dog. She's now 20. She saw this picture this morning. She's like, "Where are my teeth?" I was like, "I know, isn't it cute?" So like Lily's disclaimer earlier, this is an informational seminar. Any tax or legal things we definitely want to put in to play with your specific, and I'm kind of just talking on more general terms. So parents will come to me and say, what exactly do I need to do that's different? You know, my finances, I think I'm pretty set. Or they'll come and be like, I don't really know what at all we need to do, right? And the trusts, the ABLE account, and the parents plan and the kids plan, all of this kind of works together in one holistic future planning activity is how I look at it. And the first thing I tell parents is they need to put their air mask on first. You know, they'll come to me and say, "Oh, we got my child's special needs trust all done." And I'll say, "Did you get your will and your individual trust, power of attorneys, medical directives all set up too?" "Oh, no, we'll take care of that later," right? I always tell parents we need to start at the bottom when we're building this house, right? Our financial future and how we're going to protect it. And the first thing we need to do as parents is put our air mask on first and make sure we're doing what we need to be doing in our financial journey and in our estate planning. So making sure we have the estate planning documents done by Lilly to protect us, not just our child, right? And also make sure everything flows smoothly should something happen to us. Same thing, you know, parents will say, "I want to open an ABLE account." My first question back to them is, how much are you contributing to your retirement? Because we want to make sure the parents are set up in the right spot first before we're then putting money, parental money, family money, into an ABLE account or a special needs trust. So the first thing we want to do is make sure the parents are set up correctly, okay? And when we do that, we're building their financial plan, right? And I always look at an image, financial planning in my mind is an image of Mount Everest, right? And the peak is the point at which work becomes optional or the point that you can retire. But there are a lot of challenges getting to that peak, and there's a lot of challenges on the back end too. So financial planning is not just a very, you know, straight to the top and straight back down. There's a lot of little things we need to do along the way on both sides and different goals we have along the way on the ascent and the descent. So when we're thinking about this, you know, we're wanting, oh, my screen just went away. I cannot see my screen anymore, guys. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure I knew what I was going to talk about. So we want to make sure we're focusing on all of those kind of goals along the way or pitfalls and challenges. So looking at how does a special needs trust, ABLE accounts fit into the overall plan for your family. So when we're looking at doing a comprehensive plan for a family with a child that has disabilities, the first thing we're going to look at is the special needs trust and the pieces that go into that, right? How do we want to set that up? What do we want to, again, my screen keeps disappearing on me, guys. I'm so sorry.
Courtney, would you like me to remove you as the presenter and add you back?
Let me just see if I know where something got clicked and I don't know why. Okay, I think I got it. We're good. So looking at how we want to structure our special needs trust, and Lilly went into excellent detail earlier about the different ways that we can set that up. And I like to tell families it's not one size fits all, right? Every family's situation is different, and what they're going to need and how they're going to implement and execute that special needs trust is different. So we really just kind of want to focus on, what is good for us and go from there. So we look at that, then we look at the governmental benefits. What are they receiving or will receive from Social Security, from Medicaid? What is the timing of those? And how does that all play out as a income plan or projection for our child? That kind of creates the adult child's financial plan, which is really an exercise in budgeting. It's a very basic plan because we're focusing on what they're going to get and what they need to spend. That tells us how much the parents are actually subsidizing, right? So if our child is in their 20s and they're living at home with us, there's a lot of things that are just kind of absorbed into our family budget that if we were gone and out of the picture, our child would need to pay for, okay? Streaming services are a huge one, right? My daughter has to have her Netflix, right? Like we would have issues if we didn't have Netflix. So right now it doesn't cost her anything because she's a 20-something living with mom and dad. She's on our plan. If we were gone, that would need to kick in. Potentially a phone, iPad, what are those different things that would need to be paid for that are just kind of absorbed now? So it's a budgeting exercise to really see what are we subsidizing right now and what would we need to subsidize in the future when we consider how our child's housing will change as they age and we age. So we look at all of that in conjunction with a parent's parental plan, right? So the parents have put their MS on first and they have a full financial plan done. We can estimate, given their long-term care needs, their longevity, their income and their spending, how much they're going to leave to their children when they pass. When that money comes into the special needs trust, how much is the special needs trust going to need to pay each year? That's how we come up with an idea or a goal of how we want to fund that special needs trust or ABLE account. Money can be in both, right? I highly encourage the use of both. So that helps us answer that question of how much do we need to put in the special needs trust? Now, it is an estimate because we are not for sure. We don't have a crystal ball to know exactly when mom and dad will die, nor will we know exactly how much they will leave to the child through inheritance. Things change, things become more expensive. Someone might live longer than expected, may have early onset dementia and need care for more years than we have planned for. There's a lot of things that can impact that inheritance for sure. We also just what our child will need and what, housing right now is very, we don't have the resources in the DMV for the number of young adults that are going to need housing supports during their lifetime. So there's a lot of movement going on right now to create different housing structures where we have options besides group homes for our kids, where they can live semi-independently or in some other type of supported situation that more meets the lifestyle and that we want for them. So there's a lot of things changing. So we don't exactly know what money will be there and what supports will be there through Medicaid for them, especially with the cuts to Medicaid. That's another lot of questions. If some of the services we're counting on now will be there. So it's not a perfect science, but it gives us an idea. We can only plan for what we know of right now and go with that and kind of come up with an idea that makes sense for us if this is how much we need inside the special needs trust. We're also going to look there at how are we going, ways that we can fund that in the next couple of slides. Lastly, in that special needs planning is whether or what type of legal supports our child is going to need. Guardianship, conservatorship, are they doing a supported decision making? What is their capability and how do we best protect them going forward? So I said on that last slide, special needs trust and what is best for you is very different, right? You definitely want to have a special needs trust to protect any inheritance that's coming in and protect their access to benefits. But how you set it up could be very different from your special needs mom best friend and what they have. So you want to make sure you find the structure that works best for you, whether that is a corporate trust, a pooled trust, a variety of different, family is managing it, all the different ways that Lilly outlined. So we want to make sure that we, of course, determine what works best for us. In most cases, my families, I recommend they have at least a third-party trust and enable account. Whether they need a first-party trust, some will, some won't. It depends, one, on how you use the ABLE account and how well family has been educated to make sure money doesn't go into your child's name and can go directly into a third-party trust. But that third-party trust and setting up the ABLE account is top priority for me, for my clients. Kelly gave us so much information on ABLE accounts. Some of the ways in which I utilize ABLE accounts with my clients. Earned money not needed currently, right? If there is money coming into their account that they're not actually spending because really mom and dad is spending their money on it, that is a great money to flow directly into the ABLE account. In my mind, it kind of works as a Roth alternative because our kids can't have traditional retirement accounts. Putting money in there if they have a part-time job and they want to save 10% of their part-time income for retirement, that's a great way to put it, right? Parents also will put the reimbursement of their lodging expenses. So on SSI, your child does need to reimburse you for the lodging expenses, or SSI will be decreased by a third. So having that lodging agreement where they pay you per month what is competitive. So, a lot of parents ask me what number is. I have families that charge 500, I have families that charge 900. And then what do you do with that money? You could flow that back into the ABLE. You can use that money to buy life insurance, a lot of different things that you can do with that money. One of them is to put it into the ABLE account as a vehicle to save for when we need something a little bit bigger down the road, I view ABLE accounts as another tool in our toolbox, right? Because of the money limits, it's not the a replacement for estate planning by any means, but it complements it well. It adds a lot of benefits of use and also for the actual disabled individual to be able to have a little bit more autonomy as well. The housing loophole, we call it, but ABLE accounts, if we go back a few screens to Kelly's presentation, housing is a qualified disability expense. So you can pay housing out of your ABLE account. You can also transfer money between ABLE and your third-party trust. So money can flow from the third-party trust into an ABLE account and then offset some of the housing costs if need be. Like I said, it's not a replacement for estate planning. So keep that in mind. It's just another aspect. It complements it well. You really have kind of two ways that you can establish an ABLE account. Directly through your state program, like Kelly was saying, and she went over the Maryland ABLE in great detail. The state programs have a benefit of they're slightly less costly than ones done through an advisor program, like American Funds has what they call ABLE America, and that's much more investment focused, right? It's not going to have a debit card or checks. It's money that you're putting away for the future, and it's more investment focused versus use. So depending upon kind of your goals for that money and how you want, it depends on whether you go with the state plan or the advisor plans. So how do we fund a special needs trust or our ABLE account? There's two main ways it happens: inheritance and life insurance. Whatever's left in the parent's estate, it may be divided amongst children, that flows into the special needs trust. That is the main way that trusts get funded. A lot of times special needs trusts don't get funded or don't get significantly funded until the parents pass, or a grandparent or someone else who's leaving money for the child passes. Life insurance is also a huge way of funding the special needs trust. It takes a lot of the question marks out, right? If we're saying I want my child to have my inheritance, that should be enough. But we don't necessarily know how long I'm going to live, how much money I'm going to spend, what my long-term care needs are going to be. So I might not have $1 million left that is going into that special needs trust. But if I have a life insurance policy with a guaranteed death benefit, a permanent life insurance policy, not term, we know that no matter what happens, that money is going to go to my child when I pass away, going to go into their special needs trust. So we look at that in particular as well as a very, very important way of ensuring kind of a baseline amount into the special needs trust. The parents having adequate long-term care and life insurance is very important. What will happen not just to the family should one of the parents pass prematurely or have a significant long-term care event has a great impact too on what money is going to be left to the special needs trust. So we want to make sure, like I said, when we're building that house and we're putting our air mask on first, risk management, life insurance is one of the first things that we need to be looking at. So definitely take a close look at that. And the longer we wait, the more expensive life insurance will be, okay? Just because premiums increase with age. Also, as we age, we tend to have more health issues. And the longer that we are contributing to a permanent policy, the more we will have the ability for that cash value inside that policy to grow. So there's a lot of benefits of getting life insurance as early as possible. But of course, life happens. We can only do what we can do. So even my clients that are, in their 50s or 60s, we can still get life insurance and figure out a way to fund that special needs trust in most cases. when we're looking in, kind of going to backtrack before I get into this slide, when we're looking at the parent's financial plan, we kind of definitely need to take into effect or into account the fact that we're planning for a retirement that's not just two, right? So we're planning for a retirement that has potentially a third person involved if our child does not launch or fully launch. So our expenses and our plans may be slightly different because of that. We may not be able to downsize and move to the beach because if we change states, we'd have to start all over on the Medicaid waivers, right? There's a lot of things that impact the parent's plan when they take Social Security. All of that is going to be impacted by the special needs planning aspect. And that is very well seen too when we look at the consequences of the assets that we have and who we leave that to. So in particularly over COVID, the Secure Act eliminated the stretch IRA. So what that means is prior to the Secure Act, if I passed away and I left one of my kids my IRA money, they would be able to stretch required minimum distributions out over their lifetime, which in effect spreads out the tax consequences over a great number of years and decreases how much taxes will potentially be paid on that money. The Secure Act eliminated that stretch IRA, so now an individual only has 10 years to spend down the money that's in that IRA as required minimum distributions. And that can significantly impact the tax consequences because usually the kids inheriting that are also at their highest earning years. So they are earning more money, but now they have to take this money out as a required minimum distribution, so it can kick them into a higher tax bracket. So there's a tax consequence of where we leave the money. The reason I'm pointing that out is if we leave the money to our special needs child's trust, that can be stretched over the disabled individual's lifetime still. If it goes into a special needs trust, it has more than those 10 years. So there's a much better tax scenario leaving retirement money to the special needs trust versus a neurotypical child. So we may not want to necessarily say we've decided we're splitting all of our assets 50-50. We may want to leave all of the retirement to our special needs child and a different asset of equal value to the other child. So we want to make sure that we are working out and careful of what assets we leave to the trust and the impact that it has. There are different strategies we can also look at of gifting during your lifetime. If you want to start funding the trust, I usually have families fund an ABLE account first before funding the third-party special needs trust as ways to start saving and building up some value inside the trust and for your child, going with the ABLE account first. Another question when we're looking at assets, parents will say, well, I want my kid to stay in our home after we're gone and somebody to come in and take care of them. That may be possible, it may not. You have to really take a good look at what the expenses would be to have somebody completely manage your child's care, and the home. Because at that point, you know, your child's not going to be able to pay the bills, well, depending upon their level of capacity, but assuming that they're going to need a significant amount of support for making sure the lawn's mowed and the house is painted and all of those things. So leaving your home to the trust can be a significant drag on the expenses and be very costly. So we want to make sure that we do our due diligence in looking at that. Investments in business, you want to make, if you own a business, you want to make sure that there is if you have a partner, a cross-sell plan so that your partner is able to buy your heirs out of the business so that they can have that money and liquidity. And life insurance, making sure we list Life insurance and retirement accounts are not aren't governed by your will. They're governed by their own beneficiary designations. So you want to make sure that those are accurate. All of this is a very ongoing process. The special needs planning, tax planning, estate planning, and financial planning all working together is something that we do on a pretty consistent basis. The special needs planning and financial planning, that's a minimum of a yearly check-in. Same with your tax planning every year when you file taxes. Estate planning, I defer to Lilly on the timing of that. It's probably not something that needs to be updated every year, but depending upon changes in laws and also in your family, any milestones you definitely want to take a look at. I always share this quote when I'm, especially when we're talking about creating our wills and setting things up for our children. Fair is not equal. Fair is everyone getting what they need to be successful. So there's a great deal that we as parents carry in trying to make things fair and for our children. But I think we need to also make sure that we are considering the fact that we want to make sure everyone is successful and that everyone can achieve what we want for them in their lives and that happiness. So I will go ahead and stop my share if I can figure that out. Or Jeff, you might just want to.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and
I did it.
back over to me here.
I think I did it. All righty.
Okay. Everybody, thank you so much, Lily, Kelly, Courtney. Let's give everybody a virtual hand here. Let's now look at some questions. So now be a perfect time to pose your questions. Got 3 subject matter experts here to help us out further. So we have one question to start, probably directed towards Kelly. Can you set up automatic payments from Elville?
Is the question, can you set up automatic payments from the Elville account to a third party? If that's the question, the answer is yes, you are able to do that. You can also set up automatic contributions, monthly, weekly, however you want to do it. So yes to both.
Okay. Also regarding Elville, how do you remove cash from Elville? So I'm not sure if the question is, can you use it as an ATM card or can you change investment plans, for example, probably the former.
Okay. So the answer to that question depends on what program you're with. Here in Maryland, if you have a Maryland Elville account, you can have the prepaid card, which is going to function like a Visa card. So it doesn't give you the opportunity to withdraw cash. If you wanted to withdraw cash, what you could do is you could take a disbursement, a withdrawal from the Elville account, send it back to that linked bank account, whatever that linked bank account is, and then take money out through that bank account for cash. You want to, just make sure you have some documentation or notation for that cash that's coming out so that they know it's being, if ever audited, that cash is being spent for the beneficiary.
Okay. Another question here just came in a second ago. With a recent disability diagnosis for our child and not knowing the full impact at this point, would you or could you set up Elville accounts and still contribute to a 529 college savings investment plan?
Yes, you're able to do contributions to both.
Another question here, can Elville account fund?
Jeff, can I add a little piece to that? For my clients that don't, kind of know the full scope yet of what their kids will need and kind of how things will play out, I encourage them to do both, a 529 and an Elville. And if the question is, well, which one do I fund first? Fund the 529 first. That's fine. I don't know in Maryland, I know in Virginia, you get more of a state tax deduction on the financial, on the 529 than you do on the Elville. So I try parents to maximize that and then go to the Elville. And that way they can get even, maximize their state tax deductions. But I suggest having both. It gives us more flexibility.
And Jeff, just to add to that, the answer for Maryland is it's the same income subtraction for a 529 and an ABLE account. And some parents choose to go that way. Some folks that know that they have like very regular expenses for their child with the disability, maybe even say braces, for example, they're going to pay $5,000. They choose to put it in an ABLE account because they're going to turn around and use it every month, and they're getting that income subtraction. So again, it's really depending upon, like Cortney said, what is the intent of that? Is it long-term investing or savings? So either way.
Just add, this is Lilly, from an estate planning perspective, when parents come in with young children or young adults children where the pathway is unclear, there are things we can do in their estate planning documents to create flexibility so that if at the time the parents pass, the second of the parent passes, we have created a structure where somebody can then decide if we need a special needs trust, or maybe we need a less restrictive trust, or if the child's pathway has turned out to be very favorable and they're finding financial independence, maybe they're a regular trust we would set up for a young adult or a minor. So there are things we can also do to build in flexibility in the estate planning documents.
Kelly, we've done probably a dozen presentations before, and this is a new question. Can an ABLE account fund be used to purchase cigarettes for a beneficiary who smokes? So I know there are a few very specific things that ABLE accounts can definitely not be used to pay for. Maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yes. So again, whoever is managing that ABLE account, the account owner or the ALR, is going to have to make that decision. With the caveat is if they were ever pulled for an audit for how that money was being spent, they would go back to their regulations and said, does this expense support them in their health, their independence, or their quality of life? So that's debatable, you know. I mean, maybe somebody could make a case that the cigarettes are part of their quality of life. I don't know. It certainly wouldn't do the health, meet the health criteria, right? But it's not something that we can answer for that person. In the event that they did purchase cigarettes for that and they were audited and the IRS were to say, nah, hard no on that, they would have to pay interest on the earnings for the amount of money that they spent for those withdrawals, and there would be a tax penalty for that. But sorry, I can't answer that directly, other than to say the two things I have heard the IRS say a hard no to was gambling and gifts for other people.
Okay,
Great answer. Makes good sense. What is the age limit
for? I'll just add real quick on the special needs trust side. That's going to be up to the trustee because they have pure discretion. However you structure, if it is a viable special needs trust, at the end of the day, that is going to be up to the trustee. And I think that a court would enforce a trustee's right to deny a request for cigarettes. So, and you can't require that the trustee pay for it. If you're looking at using a pooled trust, I think it's a great interview question if you're the beneficiary and you want to know how they'd handle that.
Next question is, what is the age limit for opening an ABLE account?
That's a great question because there is no age limit. And a lot of people hear that age 26, you need to have that diagnosis or the onset of your disability before 26, and they think, oops, I didn't open it by 26, so I can't have one. You can open an ABLE account at any point in your life, as long as your disability had the onset before age 26. So we have people opening accounts for infants. We have people not learning about ABLE accounts until they're in their 60s, and they're able to open that ABLE account at that point, as long as they can show that they did have the onset before age 26. And again, beginning in January of this year, that age is going to be increased to 46. So anyone with a disability with a later onset would also qualify.
Okay, and kind of along those lines, as far as a QDE, can ABLE accounts be used to purchase wheelchair accessible vehicles?
Yes, they can.
Okay. Next is Congress considering extending the 2025 deadline for rolling over money from a 529 account to an ABLE account.
Yes, it's actually, it's looking very good. I can't promise anything, but we do have this legislation that would make permanent those provisions for both able to work contributions and rollovers from 529, which are currently set to scheduled to sunset on December 31st. So it's looking really good. I don't want to jinx it.
Okay. Looks like we've finished our questions for now. Please go ahead and note them. I'm just going to say a couple things to end here. Again, thank you so much to Lilly, Kelly, and Courtney for a great presentation. I'm sure we'll do more of these in the future. Many of you know I always send out the slides again along with the video. You can review or share with others that couldn't attend today. Also, the links from our previous two pieces of this series, I'll send that out as well, along with everybody's contact information for your reference. As our webinar series goes, we are going to have a little pause here in July as we have some vacations coming up, but we'll be back in August and have a full slate as we head into the fall of presentations, so stay tuned for those. One I do want to mention is our October 18th annual client and community education event. We've been holding this for about 11 or 12 years at this point. It's grown to a capacity audience of 300 at Ten Oaks Ballroom in Clarksville the past few years, and it's going to continue to expand a bit. Our topic is going to be the evolution of estate planning in a changing world, and we've got lots of great presentations. We have Columbia Orchestra String Quartet playing. We'll talk a little bit about our charity, door prizes, great breakfast, and much, much more. So we'll have an invitation out by Monday, and hope you'll consider RSVPing for that early because it will reach capacity. So always look forward to that great day. So we're grateful for you being here. And if there are no other questions, looks like we have one more, almost finished. Sure, this is a good question here. Is it correct that the $100,000 ABLE account balance doesn't apply for beneficiaries on SSDI?
That is correct, because SSDI does not have that asset limit.
Okay. I'm going to wait 10 seconds for one more question, and then we'll go ahead and end. Okay.
I will point one thing out on that, very careful. While SSDI, you get away from that $2,000 asset limit because you're no longer on SSI. A lot of our kids are also on Medicaid, which still has that asset limit. So just because SSDI isn't looking at it anymore, doesn't mean that $2,000 limit is not still in play overall. So just kind of be cautious with that.
Yes, and exceeding the $100,000 balance in an ABLE does protect those Medicaid and those waivers, so as well as it does in a special needs trust, of course. So.
Okay. All right. Again, thanks to our presenters, and we're also grateful for you being here and for your interest in our Elville webinar series, and we'll see you again soon. Have a cool day.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.